have my buddy Mike Farrell joining us today. Thank you so much for joining, Mike. We are talking about media, life, and the entertainment industry as a whole. But mainly we are talking about Thor 4, Love and Thunder, and then pivoting into some TV shows, including Andor and The Rings of Power. So let's
That's
start off
right.
with we'll start off with our Thor analysis, because back when Thor 4 was relevant, we made a video about our expectations for Thor 4, and now months later we are doing our reaction to the movie that came out in, was it July? I think it was July.
It was a while ago. It was a
Yes.
while ago. We were pretty hyped on it initially. We probably
Sure was.
pushed. Yeah, I think we pushed out the video probably before most people, and then we're just getting to the reaction later than everybody. So we were super early, now we're super late.
Yes. In true indie podcasting fashion. So it's good.
Totally. So yeah, I don't even know where we begin. Let's start by being polite to Taika.
I do
And
love Taika still, and I think that was what left such a bad taste in my mouth, is that every other thing I've seen that Taika Waititi's been involved in has been of a really high caliber and had a lot of heart. And I felt like this movie, I think I had a slightly more favorable viewing on the second round. I've seen it twice now, once in theaters, once on Disney Plus, and I guess, like, compared to the baseline of, well, there's the baseline of your average superhero movie, and then the baseline
right.
of your average MCU movie.
But then there's also a very wonky baseline within Thor films,
True,
because
true.
Thor 3 was here,
Yes, Thor 3 was the best,
Thor 1 and
obviously.
2 are here, and so we'll have to talk about where you place it, because
Yeah, because I am a Thor apologetist. I enjoyed Thor 1 and 2. I think compared to 3, they got blown out of the water because 3 is so good. But
right.
I was always a fan of Thor 1 and 2. I enjoyed the first Thor. I enjoyed Dark World. I think I would have ranked them. Again, it's hard to place Thor 4, but I would have ranked Thor 3 is obviously the best, and I would
Yeah.
have said Thor 1, and then Dark World was my last, but I still enjoyed it.
See, and just to jump to, we'll unpack this, but
Yes.
my ranking is Thor 3, probably Thor 1, Thor 2, then Thor 4.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So, so you're saying that, I want to state on the record that Mike Farrell was saying Thor: Love and Thunder is your least favorite Thor film.
I think that Taika Waititi holds both mantles for
Best and worst.
best and worst, because if I don't know, because I put so much more weight on story
Yeah.
compared to CGI. And so I think if you do that, I just I just feel as though I don't know. There's so many different elements with Thor 4 that just felt rushed.
Oh, totally. And that was, and to be honest, I haven't really delved into this, but I've heard a lot of rumors. And again, this is just rumors. I don't want to die on this hill or anything, but I've heard that, Taika Waititi's gotten so much renown after Thor Ragnarok and his other hit movies that he has a lot of projects he's producing and juggling a lot. And so Thor 4 was kind of in his contract. And I've heard rumors that, like, he just didn't really take it seriously. He didn't really want to be there. And he kind of, I heard someone say, and again, I haven't substantiated this, that he was like showing up to some of the publicity, like, interviews, like visibly drunk and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Again, I haven't looked into that. But when you look at the movie itself, I'm like, those rumors sound somewhat plausible given the product that we got. You know what I mean?
I I think the guy's a professional. I think that probably more likely than anything else, I think that the dude just got busy with everything else that you just suggested. I think that if you're producing multiple things, if you're directing or in pre-development to direct multiple things, I mean, the guy, he's an artist, and I don't know. I think that for him it was like the novelty of doing a big budget film, having done only small budget stuff for the
True.
longest time, and then getting paid.
Yeah.
And then after that, I mean, he's not just directing.
Right, he
He's
because he had a bigger role for Korg in the fourth movie, which was him from the behind the scenes I've seen him on set in a CGI mocap outfit. So
well, I mean, even beyond that, because he also did Suicide Squad,
was
right?
he in the new Suicide Squad?
Yeah, he was the father of the Rat Girl.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
So he did Suicide Squad, and then
I know he's producing Reservation Dogs currently, which is running
he's
on
producing
FX.
that, and I'm sure he's in a bunch of other stuff, both acting and like the guy just doesn't have any time. And
Yeah,
I feel like out of all of the projects that he's doing, I think that he already kind of like stamped his name, said, "Hey, I threw down an awesome MCU film." And
yeah.
I think that he was relying on I think he was lying on the goodwill that people just wouldn't shit on it the way that they're doing, because they're really just shitting on this film, and
Yeah.
we're about to as well. But I think that we're going to be a little bit more polite about it and be a little
Yeah.
bit. But anyway,
The,
we can break this down in different ways. Let's talk about it in terms of pacing first.
the pacing you can criticize a lot, I think, because especially on my second round of it too, it felt kind of sporadic, and I think when we're talking about, well, yeah, the pacing was sporadic for sure. It didn't have as much of a consistent pace as I would have liked. Um, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on the pacing, because that's pretty much all I have to say about the pacing. So,
Well, I think I think that they rushed Gore's sequence. Uh,
like his initial coming
like
into his villainhood type.
yeah, I think that they rushed that,
Yeah.
and they had the formula there for, okay, this is marginally a sympathetic villain, but
Yes.
they didn't even really establish like a massive connection to the daughter. Like it was just kind of like, oh, she's dead, now he's in paradise, now he's killing this dude, and off we go. And it was just all like ultra quick.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like our reimagining of what the origin should have been, where I would have liked it better had this been something that was brewing for a long time rather than be
Oh.
like a 3-day, 1 week
Suddenly
SS.
he has a necro sword. He's this sudden threat in the galaxy. Yeah, I agree.
Because if you remember what we said before, I said, well, it'd be so much better because Hela, her sword is also known as the Necker sword.
Oh, I
She
didn't know
is,
that. Okay.
it is, yeah. And so, dude, they failed to establish that this sword is a symbiote,
Oh.
because this sword is basically there's origin that this sword is basically from the planet that Venom is from.
That makes sense how it's kind of corrupting Gore and steering him down this path if it's its own sentient entity. That makes sense.
So what I would have liked to do is tie Venom in if you can, and maybe they don't want to touch Venom because it'd be really hard for them to play into that. Maybe they're not going to really have too much of the rights of Venom, and they
Right.
can't do it. But they could have easily, like we said before, show Hela and Odin like conquering these realms, and have Gore be the aftermath, and his
Uh,
daughter's death be the aftermath of Thor's own lineage,
that would have
and
been a lot more compelling.
a
I
lot
agree.
more compelling. And now the desire to kill Thor, there's some want there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Like you connect the family a lot more, and then then when Gore has to, at the very end, when he has to decide whether or not to uh, choose to kill all gods or to bring his daughter back, now that's a real decision because now he has to look past Thor's family
Right.
and for really forgive the sins of the father and say, all right, I trust you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been a lot more compelling. I think that's what it circles back to what we were saying about it feeling rushed. Is that it just, yeah, they establish this villain. There's a clear opportunity to really elevate his stakes and, like you just said, his connection to the protagonist, and they just don't. It's like, as I was watching, especially the first half of the movie, like you have this opening where you're like, okay, because we haven't seen any characters besides Gore and his daughter, so like when she dies, you're like, okay, that's sad. And then like when the god that he meets kind of mocks him and then he slays him, you're like, all right, cool. And then they're like, now this is the bad guy, and I was like, all right, like you could make us a little more torn of, are we rooting for him, are we not? It was just very haphazardly done.
Yeah. Well, so that's one aspect of the pacing. The other aspect of the pacing that I thought was just extremely off was just the trying to balance all of the humor.
Yeah.
It was way too humor driven,
Yeah.
and uh there wasn't enough pause to really feel the gravity. Like I
Yeah.
never thought for a moment that these kids were going to die, that Gore
Right.
had kidnapped. Not for a second was I like, oh, I feel like these lives are in jeopardy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, because the levity that was established in Thor 3, it I don't know, they just struck a really good balance where like you had very little levity going on in Asgard as Hela's taking over and like subjugating the population, but then on Sakaar or whatever the planet is, there's lots of funny stuff going on, but then the humor drops off, not entirely but pretty significantly, in the third act of Ragnarok. And yeah, that wasn't really the case here. It didn't work the same.
It didn't work, and it just seemed that the sequence that I think they really screwed up with was every time they would have Thor reappear using Heimdall's son to like present himself in that little spaceship
Yeah, to
and
talk with the kids, right?
to talk with the kids, and that the real problem could be solved there because if they had just approached those sequences with a darker tone, then you would have had the balance because
Yeah.
they should have had the stakes really get established. They probably should have killed a kid, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, that would have elevated the stakes a lot. I don't know if Disney's ready to quite go there yet in an MCU film, but I agree that would have been like, oh, okay, all these kids are in danger. Like, I'm invested much more now.
or or have Gore kill something other than a creature in front of the children because he kills some like random snake thing. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, have him like brutally sacrifice some god like right in front of the kids.
Yeah. That would have shown it is funny because Christian Bale's performance, for the most part, was very dark and compelling. I liked it, but it didn't fit the tone of the rest of the movie, so it kind of negated what he was establishing with his performance. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that the reason why it wasn't as compelling as what it should have been is that character like immediately latched on to the idea of, oh, my new mission is to kill gods. um but that character didn't have to be driven through psychosis, I guess you could say, because it seemed like the character was somewhat of a psychotic zealot.
Yeah, so like that flip where he is super committed to his god, and then his daughter dies, and he finally meets his god and is like pleading with him, and then the god mocks him. Him killing that god, I was like, hell yeah, that makes sense. But then for them to be like, I must kill all gods, it's like, well, like that's a big jump, like that's your new thing, It just
Well,
happens very suddenly.
yeah, and it's kind of like I don't know. I feel like the Gore character needed to be more grounded to have more because they made the character so psychotic and so dark so quickly that you lose any of the sympathy that's established in the beginning, you
True,
know,
true.
where I feel as though I feel as though they could have like established that a lot of these gods are tyrants.
Yeah, they could
Ha-
have done a much better
have
job of that.
have because all the gods that you hear about that he's killed, it's like, oh, this was such a good god that this person.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, well, you went from like sympathy to us like not really liking him. He's already crazy. There was like we didn't really get to learn about the daughter, but it's like you establish like a little bit more with the daughter, and then from there you show him killing awful, terrible gods where now you're actually like somewhat conflicted because you're like, well, he's just he's just killing the bad gods. You know what I
right.
mean?
So then when you have a good god like Thor, where you're like, well, now I want to root for Thor, but also I like this guy. Yeah, they could have played with that a lot more and made it much more compelling. I completely agree.
Yeah. So I don't know. We should have just said, "Hey, Taika, just
Just let us,
let us write it."
yeah, because he could inject his humor and style into there, and it would have been great. So yeah,
But overall,
this is our pitch, Disney. Hire Josh and Mike.
well, Josh, I'm wondering what did you find redeeming about the film? What did you like about it? Because there were a few things I liked about it.
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned before, I liked the outfits. The production design was really solid. So the technical elements of the movie, I felt like were good. Despite having kind of a rush production, I think the CGI for the most part was decent.
Yeah,
Um, I yeah, I'm trying to think what I like. I mean, there are some humorous moments, and yeah, no, I'm trying to think of really. There's not much that stands out to me. Where like, yeah,
I I actually I appreciated the Jane Foster storyline. I thought that I thought that the idea that because I thought provided she just remained Thor that there were no problems, but it turned out that her becoming Thor was also sucking away her chances of survival
right.
from the cancer. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was well done. I don't know how I'm going to feel about the Valhalla end with her.
That that part I actually thought was cool because she sees Heimdall, and I'm a big Heimdall fan. So like, this was the first Thor movie without Heimdall, which was something I was concerned about going into. Because I think he's been a really cool part of the universe in the first three films. So,
I think that the problem is that they could really run the risk of the Dragon Ball Z dilemma.
which I've never seen Dragon Ball Z, so you'll have to educate me on what that is.
Well, so Dragon Ball Z, uh, there were some stakes like with life and death and stuff like that, and then they introduce the Dragon Balls, where basically whoever collects 7 Dragon Balls, they can wish whatever they want,
Oh, that's pretty universe breaking right there.
and no matter what, it's almost always that somebody that was good was is that had died is wished back to life, right?
Oh, yeah. So it just
So
undermines all the stakes of the whole
it
universe.
undermines all the stakes all the time because you're like, oh, well, just go find those damn Dragon Balls, you know? And I feel like with Marvel, and granted, the comics they constantly renew, and there's
Yeah,
rebirth, and there's other dimension. Like that's part of the comics. But I guess the difference with the comics is that they're when they redo these, when they reboot them, um, you're getting like a significant different flavor every time.
Yeah, because it's
Um,
almost like different multiverses where
it's like yeah,
yeah,
it's a totally different shade. Whereas, um, I don't know. I feel as though
yeah. I get what you're saying, that introducing the concept of a viable real afterlife adds a whole new complicated layer to the universe. But like they've already had that with Black Panther, with the afterlife where he sees his father and his ancestors and stuff. And I remember reading somewhere, I think in the show Moon Knight, which I have not seen yet, I've only seen the first
yeah,
episode. I think they have some stuff like the Egyptian afterlife. So from what I've read online, is that for the MCU, not necessarily for the comics, is that like there's this concept that based on what you believe dictates what afterlife you end up in, which is an interesting thing. I can see how if they delve into that more in the future, it could get very complicated, and it could undermine stakes ultimately. So it is a risk.
yeah. So I guess that Iron Man, he just won't ever return because he was presumably an atheist.
Yeah, he's just done.
That the only thing that kept him from life was just not believing in anything, and so
He
that's the
believed in himself. None.
well, that's the only person that people actually want to see return anyway.
I don't, because that would undermine his awesome arc that he
Well,
had in his
that's what I.
sacrifice. Yeah.
But everybody else, that's the one character that they want to see come back. But everybody else, they don't die.
Well, let me. It'd be cool if, like, in a future Doctor Strange movie, if he like briefly meets another universe's Tony Stark in like a cameo or something, that'd be fun. But no, I think bringing back like the full-on Tony Stark would undermine what he's done, and that's why sometimes it can be dangerous if you want to have too much fan service, because you end up giving fans something that undercuts the story you've established thus far.
Yeah. The other thing, I'm trying to think of the other elements that I really enjoyed about the film before we move on to some
Yeah.
other stuff that we're watching. Um, I,
I mean,
I
I do enjoy the actors' performances. Natalie Portman's always fantastic in everything she's in. Chris Hemsworth, I love the vibe he brings to Thor, especially with Taika's guidance. And then Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie is awesome. I do enjoy the character of Korg. I like that he had more screen time. That was cool.
I love the gay backstory between Korg and his two dads, and that's how
I know, right? It's delightful. Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious.
that was fantastic. Yeah,
Just two dudes hold hands and
and they have a rock
they
child.
have a rock baby or whatever.
Yeah. And then, and then like in the opening scene with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which that did feel out of place. That was kind of a weird Guardians cameo, but I liked the just the design of like these weird owl creatures they're fighting, and then like by defeating them, Thor destroys the temple, and the little alien priest is all upset. Like, that was kind of a fun intro. Like watching that, I was like, okay, this will be a cool movie, and then it was kind of a downward from
I
there. But
I enjoyed that well enough, and I actually like the setup of where it's going. Like I like the end of it better than almost the entire film. Like it's like how do you get to the end with some better pacing and um I don't know. I think that writing and pace were the two things holding this thing back. But I really like the idea that you have Thor, the god dad,
yeah,
and it's his actual daughter in real life.
yeah, that played the daughter. That was cool. Yeah.
So I think that Hemsworth, I mean, if he wants to give his daughter like a really cool opportunity, I mean, I think that's a very funny story that they could do for the next one.
Yeah. They've said that Taika's out for Thor 5 after how this one performed. So I'm curious who they'll tap to write and direct if they do a fifth one. Because the other interesting thing is this is the first MCU movie that's a solo hero movie for the fourth time. He's the first one to get a fourth in his own series. I mean, there's been lots of people who have had multiple outings in the collaborative movies like Avengers and stuff, but I think people are going to have a lot of discussions about at what point do we want our heroes to kind of fall into the backdrop and bring new heroes out? Because, um, Thor is one of my favorite heroes in the MCU. So like I was excited for a fourth time with Thor, but I think some people kind of want to focus on newer heroes.
Not me.
Not
I'm
you.
I'm I'm with you. Yeah, I'm actually a little bit I don't actually enjoy a lot of the stuff that they've put out this year. I think that
I've
I
pretty
think
much enjoyed everything except She-Hulk. I didn't get into as much. I think a lot of people were criticizing it before it even came out, based on all kinds of you know latent misogyny and stuff. But then when I actually watched the show, I was like, this isn't great. Like I see what they were going for, and I like that the MCU was like, take risks, be bold, be something different. Because I like, as we'll talk about soon with Andor,
yeah,
Andor is very different for Star Wars. So I like when these big franchises say, "Hey, we have kind of our backbone structure of what most of our stories are like. Let's have some other stories exist." And like for Marvel, I don't know if you've seen Werewolf by Night.
I liked that.
That was fantastic.
I
And again,
like that.
that was not. It was kind of like far field from where the normal MCU stuff was, but it complements the universe in a cool way, and I very much enjoyed it. And with She-Hulk, I feel like they tried to do that, and then for me, it didn't land. A lot of the
Yeah,
jokes didn't land. The pacing was weird. They had some good side characters they established, and then really didn't do anything with them. And then the fourth wall breaking, they just went
I
way above and
the
beyond with it, and I
the
was like, it's
fourth
too
wall.
much. Yeah,
I couldn't stand the fourth wall
me
stuff.
neither.
I
Yeah.
The last episode was one of the worst episodes I've ever seen.
Yeah, it
I
was
I
the whole
feel
after the
like
end of the finale. I was like, "What did I just watch? Like, what was
oh
that?"
dude, I feel as though that was for the writers. It was for the writers and that's it. Like it's like okay, you made Kevin Feige laugh, you made nobody else laugh.
Right. Well, and again, I kind of see what they were going for. I just think that they just didn't do a great job of it. Like, I hope they get a season two and bring in some new writers and kind of hit the mark they were going for with season one. But yeah, no, I wasn't overtly impressed with season one.
I just don't I think that they're drastically underestimating the female viewership that was watching the show Suits.
I've oh
It's
yeah,
like that's who you're trying to pick up is like whoever was a chick watching Suits. Like you're trying to pick up that audience here and it just doesn't work.
if that was their goal, though, they did a bad job, because that was the thing that I was excited for with the show. Is I thought, okay, if they're going to have a story about someone who lives in the Marvel universe, which is a lot like ours, but there's superheroes and there's these crazy events that we've seen in the movies that have impacted the culture as a whole. Like, I kind of do want to see a story about an average lawyer navigating their personal and professional life in the Marvel universe, and then they just didn't deliver on it. There was one episode where that was like the one with the magician where she's trying to like get him out of legal trouble. That
Yeah.
was kind of fun, and then the rest of the show they didn't really focus on that. So whatever they were going for was very again, whatever they were going for, I don't think they did a good job of, because they would have fixated on like a consistent thing. You know what I mean?
Well, they should have pegged the writers from Better Call Saul. They should have set it in a tone that was
Ironically, the one of the lead writers of Better Call Saul went to do Rings of Power, which the first three episodes I was not a fan of. But
oh interesting.
yeah, Jennifer
Interesting.
Hutchinson, yeah, she was one of the senior writers on Better Call Saul. I think she wrote for Breaking Bad as well, and then she's the, if I'm not mistaken, lead writer on Rings of Power. And yeah, anyway, but
Well, let's
no,
do
I
this,
agree.
Josh.
Yes,
Let's give this film a rating, and then let's chat about a couple of other things that we're watching.
cool.
Um, what do you rate it out of 100?
Thor out of 100. 65.
Oh wow, that's lower than me.
I'd say 65. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I don't feel so bad. I was going to say 71.
No, I'm a 65 on that one. It was
Well, what do you rate the other three then?
I'd rate Thor Ragnarok, I mean, as an MCU film, 99. As a movie as a whole, 95. I really enjoyed Ragnarok a lot. So I would put Ragnarok, yeah, upper 90s. Thor 1, I think, is a solid superhero movie. It's got a good amount of humor where they play with the fish out of water. You know, Thor's this guy's in Asgard. Now he's in New Mexico. Just smashing the glass. Another. Like, I thought it was fun. So I'd put Thor 1 at like an 88. I thought it was really solid. And then Dark World, I would put at like 78. Where like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything special, you know?
Those are all really fair scores.
Thank
I'm
you.
not even getting my scores on the other ones. I think that you nailed it. But yeah, that's it. We would say that between 65 and 71 on Thor 4. So for those of you who are diehard Chris Hemsworth fans, diehard Taika Waititi fans, diehard.
Which I'm still a diehard Taika Waititi fan, even despite this. Because again, if he's had one fumble out of all the movies I've seen of his that are great, I mean, Jojo Rabbit, What We Do in the Shadows, Thor Ragnarok, I'm still a pretty big fan of his. So
We try to be fair. We tried to give him credit where credit's due on the other ones, but this one just did not cut it.
no,
It didn't work. I don't know that you should say, "Hey, I'm done with them." I think that he could still do it. He could still do a fifth and redeem himself, but that is how the cookie crumbles. But a couple of shows that we are watching,
yes,
I guess shows, not films, but I'm sure we'll talk about more films. We will probably end up talking about Wakanda Forever or something
yeah,
like that.
that's in a month. That looks fantastic.
It looks excellent. Yeah.
I'm sure they're gonna take the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman and make us cry in the theater, and I'm very much looking forward to that. It's gonna be cathartic, you know.
Well, here you have a director that's still about it. Like that's like
Yeah,
his franchise, and I think that's the
right.
difference. Is that like I'm sure that Ryan Coogler, right?
Yeah, fantastic
I'm
writer director.
I'm sure that he has other opportunities, but dude, he takes this property serious
Yeah,
as all get out, and good for
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Good for him because not
Just
ever.
quick tangent on his. I mean, his first. I believe it's he. I think he directed 3 movies before the first Black Panther. He did an incredible job of taking really small budgets and telling really compelling stories that earned tons of Oscar nominations. Like he's set himself up for a really fantastic career, and he's really putting all of his energy and passion into Black Panther. And I think that's delightful. So yeah,
I'd like to see 3 from him. I
me
like
too.
to see this one and then one more and then pass the torch. But I think he's just going to kill it. So
Yeah.
I like the castings in it. I like the direction of it. I think that Shuri and the whatever the King's Guard is called. I think
Oh,
that
the
they're
Dora Milaje. Yeah,
the
they're
Dora
awesome.
Milaje. I think
Yeah.
that it's gonna be great. But in terms of shows, in terms of other stuff people should be watching,
Yes.
and I know that you gave this a chance, and you stopped watching it, and I need to get you back on the boat. Rings of Power
Yes.
for the listener or viewer out there. I'm a fan. I think, unfortunately, in true Tolkien style, it takes a little bit to set up. It,
I wish the first again, I've only seen the first 3 episodes. I felt like from a technical standpoint, excellent. Great costume design.
it's
It's a beautiful
beautiful.
show. Yeah, great music. Bear McCreary is one of my heroes. He's a fantastic composer. Um, but just the writing in the first 3 episodes, like, dude, there's 70-minute episodes and nothing
Just
happens.
too slow. Yeah.
So slow. Oh my gosh.
It
And like
takes
the only character they really establish that like they make you care about is Arendir. In the first 3 episodes, he was the only one where I was like, okay, I like this guy. I see kind of who he is. I see the predicament he's facing. I want to see what he does and how it turns out. Every other character, I was like, snooze. Like they just did not establish. They didn't give me any reason to care about the characters, you know. So yeah.
I think I will say this. Episode 6 is fantastic.
Okay, that's
It
good.
it takes a little bit to get there. Episode 5 it starts 4 and 5 it kind of builds to 6, but I agree 100%. The first 3 a bit of a snore fest. I I don't know. I'm sure that but I don't know. I would rather them take their time and because you look at Breaking Bad, they took their time for all of the second season. Like the biggest criticism that Breaking Bad has is that they did so much table setting the second season that people didn't make it to the third season.
Now I may be biased on that because first off, it's been a while since I've watched Breaking Bad, so trying to remember like
Dude,
splitting it up into
they
seasons. But
they took a fucking season off, Josh. They took a whole season where
oh
like
really?
yeah, I mean the writers I mean they took it off like they didn't feel like any action in there like at all. It was
Huh?
all table setting. It was all like rewatch it, dude. The second season is a
Yeah.
long, but I was like, all
My
right,
point is, I watched the first 4 seasons after they'd come out, so I binged those 4. So the pacing's a little different for me as opposed to someone who was watching it as it was releasing weekly. You know?
oh dude, but I watched it just like you,
Oh,
and
okay.
it was hard to get through that second season, but I did it.
Yeah.
And anyway, I look at that and I'm like, okay, I am going to watch this the whole. I committed to the whole first season though,
Okay.
because I was like, you know what? It's kind of wonky that they don't have the rights to Cimmerillion. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um, However, there's enough context in the Lord of the Rings where you're getting some of that information in Lord of the Rings, which they do have the rights to. Um, and from what I understand, from everything that I read, this is gonna be about 5 seasons. It's gonna be about 50 episodes.
That's what they've stated. And I know season 2 is currently under production, so they're moving forward with that. You know.
So I I don't know. I'm a little bit. I don't know if I'm enthralled or annoyed about the who is Sauron trope.
Yeah, I read online in the finale they do reveal who it is,
Oh, do they
and
reveal it?
so
Well, don't tell me
I
because I
won't
don't
tell you,
know.
but I saw it. I was like, boo, like lame. I don't know. Again, maybe my perception of the character in question will change as I watch more of it, but and also the reveal of like who the stranger is. I was like, not a fan. So I don't know.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
I
they reveal this the stranger as well.
to do.
Okay, well, I'm guessing that the stranger is not Sauron, so you ruled that out for me.
Maybe I'm misleading you intentionally. You don't know. You don't know.
I all right. Well, it sounds based off of what you just stated. It sounds like I'm going to be somewhat let down in the next 2 episodes but I did hear that so I will say this, Josh, you need to continue watching it
Okay,
because I know you love Lord of the Rings. I know
I
that
do.
you
I'm a big
probably somewhat appreciate The Hobbit.
Yeah,
In
I
book
appreciate
form
elements of the
more.
in
Yeah.
book form more, but the movies had some redeeming qualities. They weren't as good as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but they were still enjoyable. I like them.
So if I don't know, I feel like episode 6 was what
It's
I would
worth the
want.
5 episode worth the
I,
5 episode buildup.
yeah, because the whole just the way that they did it and the pacing of episode 6 is so good, and some of the misdirection is so good,
That's cool.
and it feels like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
You know, it feels like it, and so from what I understand, episode 7 is kind of like a falling action, kind of getting our bearings. So
Yeah.
episode 6 is where like the majority of the action is going to be.
Okay.
It's kind of weird that it takes 5 episodes to get to some fucking action in a big way. But from what I hear from my friends that watched it all the way through, episode 8, which was the finale, they said that there were no notes. They said no notes.
Wow.
But
That's high praise.
it sounds like you've got some notes because it sounds like you kind of figured out some stuff and you're like, oh, I've got
Well,
some notes.
again, there were just 2 articles about reveals contained within the finale that I read because I was like, at this point, I was like, I don't really care about spoilers, which normally I do. But those 2 things, again, I'm saying that based on what little I've seen, and then that
Yeah.
reveal, I'm like, it'd be very difficult for me to fathom them getting to that reveal in a meaningful way. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I'm going to give it a try. You know, because I've heard from you as well as our mutual friend Clayton that it's
Did he
worth getting through the first half. He said the first half of the season is not his favorite, and then he said the second half was really compelling. So I said, okay, that's
Well, if that's what he says, then I would second that, and that's two people on Burnhamwood Drive.
Well, that's yeah,
That's like the ultimate veto right there.
yes,
So
exactly.
you have to watch it. All right. So now I'm judging by your background that you are gonna talk to me about this because I will say this: you talked to me about Andor before, but you're much more of a Star Wars nerd than me. Like we watched Kenobi together.
And that was very fun to recap it with you as we went along throughout the season. Yes.
Yeah, and you said, "Hey, look out for Andor." And I think, dude, I think it was because I was like, "Okay, I've got Rings of Power. I I gave She-Hulk a try. I should have devoted my time towards Andor and got my time back. I wish I could trade all the time back I wasted on She-Hulk and put it towards Andor."
Well, the nice thing is with Andor is that it's going to have a much longer run than most Disney Plus shows. It's there. So with Andor, they've said they're doing 2 seasons only that are going to lead
Yeah.
right up into Rogue One, and it's 24 episodes total. So it's a little bit longer than your typical MCU or other Disney Plus story.
24 episodes for the first season?
No, 12 for the first season, 12 for the second, and then it's done.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, and so they've already kind of had that planned out. Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it brief, man. Andor is fantastic. I love it.
So where do you play out of all the Star Wars that's out there? Is this just would you place it near Rogue One in terms of tone and feel?
Very much so. Yes, and I think in terms of the shows, it's my favorite because kind of like what I was saying earlier with Marvel and like Werewolf by Night and stuff. I like when you have a very big universe and when there are projects that go in a different direction than most projects in that universe because it kind of makes the world feel bigger, and Andor absolutely accomplishes that. It's dark, it's gritty, it's suspenseful, it's mature, it's kind of a slow steady build up in a good way. um it's there's
But you like that this doesn't hinge on the last name being Skywalker.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. Um, I like that we're getting something different. And again, that's not to say
Yeah.
like I love the Skywalker saga. Obviously, I love the Mandalorian. I loved Kenobi. But this is just different. Like we haven't. It's 6 episodes in, and we haven't seen a stormtrooper yet. And it's cool
Oh, that's
because
interesting.
yeah, like a lot of it takes place in the Outer Rim, and so you're seeing or not the Outer Rim, like the outer mid rim where like kind of the empire has outsourced a lot of the law enforcement and stuff to like corporations and stuff, and so you're seeing just kind of people like, hey, the empire is growing at an alarming rate and we're just kind of on the fringes of it trying to stay away. And so um yeah, it's really cool because I really enjoy, like, so the first 3 episodes came out on day one. They all came out and they're very interconnected. It almost felt like one long movie because they're about 40 minutes each. So the first 3 episodes felt like a movie setting up the show, and then episodes 4 and 5 are kind of building up to a big like mission, and then 6 was the mission, and the way it went was so unexpected and awesome. I've loved everything about the show. It's Disney Plus's highest budget show ever. A lot.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of so you know how the Mandalorian, they use that, I forget the name of it, but it's like that big sound stage with the LED background that mirrors the camera, so they can have very little set design and may have most of it be CGI and have big ships and landscapes and stuff. Like 90% of the Mandalorian is filmed on this special sound stage that they created for the show.
Yeah.
And for shows like The Mandalorian, it works just fine. But for Andor, they were like, we're not using that at all. Like it's mostly practical sets, on location shooting. Like it's super expensive, and
Wow.
it looks beautiful. The acting's fantastic. The writing's been great.
How much did they spend on it?
They haven't released the numbers, but I mean, I can just tell from looking at it, this is clearly like at least double the budget of Kenobi, which is surprising that they would do that. Where you have Kenobi, who's this established and loved character, and then Andor is a guy. I think Cassian Andor is a fantastic character. I've been a huge fan since Rogue One, but people who aren't diehard Star Wars fans probably wouldn't recognize the name Cassian Andor. So I'm impressed they took such a big leap on a lesser known character.
Was he in Rogue One?
Oh yeah, he's the he's kind of like the secondary main character to Felicity Jones, protagonist of Journey. So
I need to rewatch it because I haven't watched Rogue One in a long time.
Oh yeah, no, Rogue One's good, but yeah, he's one of the main crew in
And
Rogue
is
One.
it before or after Rogue One?
So Andor starts out 5 years before Rogue One, and they've said that the ending of season 2 is going to be just before Rogue One, so they're going to cover 5 years.
The ending of season 2 is just before. Okay, so this is. I kind of wish that they would go because they try to find these stories. They're like, oh, let's tell this right in between this, and this is your little cookie cutter story. I want to find something that has enough balls to wrap around something. Give us the, the nugget leading up to it, like what happened,
Yeah.
and then give us the recourse, like just do what
Well, they can't do that with Andor because, spoiler alert, in Rogue One, Cassian Andor dies. So there's no after the events of Rogue One for this show, you know?
well, maybe they couldn't do it in that manner, but I actually sort of liked the device from Vikings
Which
when
I have
they
not seen.
so season 4. I actually think mid-season of season 4, they fast forward like 18 years,
Oh, wow. It's a bold
like
choice.
10-15 years. They jump ahead in time,
Wow.
and I feel like one of these shows, I don't know. I kind of want to see it happen with the Mandalorian. Like I kind of want to see like a 100-year time jump because they could do that with Baby Yoda. Like they could jump ahead 500 years.
Yeah,
How
but
old?
then Din Djarin would be dead, the Mandalorian. Yeah, Grogu could be alive because his species lives like up to 900 years old, I think.
Well, I guess what if they just jumped ahead in time
The
50, 50,
old
50
man
years?
Mandalorian, old man Mando. I'd be down for that.
Well, because Luke is how old? Luke is like
He was 19 in A New Hope, and then I want to say Return of the Jedi is like 6 years, so he's like mid-20s in Return of the Jedi.
and so this takes place right after Return of the Jedi, correct?
I think it's 3 years after Return of the Jedi is the Mandalorian. So yeah,
So he's presumably 28.
I think so. I might be wrong. God, internet, let me know if I'm wrong.
How how many years would they have to fast forward to get to the
The sequel trilogy.
The Kylo Ren timeline?
I want to say the sequel
Is it like
trilogy.
30 years?
I think it was like 20 or 19 or something.
Oh,
So
that's right.
Luke would
Because
be
they
like in
talk.
his. I
Yeah.
guess the actor, obviously Mark Hamill's in his 60s, but I guess Luke Skywalker would be like 40s or 50s then.
So in his 50s, and presumably Mando is of a similar age.
Yeah,
Like,
roughly. Yeah, he would be about the same age as Luke Skywalker. Yeah.
so do you think that they're going to? Here's what I want to see. I want to see them fast forward. My dog is scratching his ear, so if you hear that crazy sound, hey, stop for a moment. Thank you. All right. So here's what I want to see. I want to see the massacre in the Jedi Temple.
Oh yeah, from Kylo Ren. Yeah.
Um, but I guess we've kind of ruled out that Grogu was a part of that temple.
Have you seen the Book of Boba Fett?
Uh, yes. The show?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, because remember, Grogu leaves the Jedi Temple, so we know almost certainly that he wasn't there when
We know he
Kylo
was
Ren and his guys did their thing.
right. So we know that he wasn't there. So maybe we don't need to see the massacre, but we could fast forward in time to a um post emperor, because Daisy Ridley and not Daisy Ridley, but Ray and Ben Solo just killed the clone emperor.
Right. At the end of
But
episode 9, yeah.
however, you could do a film in which Mando is 30 years older, Ray is involved, and you have a Grogu that is maybe just learning to speak 30 years from now. Am I wrong?
That'd be cool. I'd be
And
down
you
for that.
and you could set up
A new adventure
a new
that doesn't have
villain
to do with
somewhere.
the Emperor. Yeah, something on the edge of the galaxy, something weird. I'd like that. Hell yeah, that'd be great.
Am I
Go explore.
wrong?
They could go explore the unknown regions, like find some weird like cosmic terror stuff, and have it not be a galaxy threat, but something that they have to defeat. Like again, I want something different than because again, the episodes 1 through 9 are the backbone of Star Wars.
Right.
I want to explore things outside of those now, such as Andor, where because Andor is very much like here's this young guy. He's trying to figure out like he doesn't like the Empire, but he's not super radicalized against them yet. So like in the first couple episodes of Andor, it's about him meeting some people who are kind of these forming these proto cells that are going to become the rebellion in a couple years, and him getting involved with them. So it's a really fun just exploration of revolution. I really like it a lot.
Let me just make a bold prediction.
Ooh, good.
Disney's going to pay Daisy Ridley ungodly amounts of money, 20 million a year, 25 million a year, within 3 to 5 year span to come back and either do a TV series that either features Daisy on, because they left her where, in Tatooine?
I believe so. Yeah.
Her and Grogu's world are going to collide, and it's going to be her and Grogu for either multiple seasons or multiple films about the because it kind of, yeah, we got something old. She took the Skywalker last name in the end, but
Yeah.
I don't see where else they're gonna go. I mean, who else do they have that's quite as bankable as Daisy Ridley?
That's a good point. Now, I don't want to go on the tangent of dissecting the sequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9, and the many myriad of opinions I have there and stuff. But yeah, the direction, because again, uh, whether you're a fan of how they did it or not, episode 9 did give us a lot of closure
Right.
for the saga. And so that's what I like about anything set after 9, which nothing has happened yet after 9, is it's very open. Like anything could happen. So I like that there's a full world of possibilities, and hopefully we don't get more super weapons like Starkiller Base or more Emperor clones or garbage like that.
Yeah.
But no, I like that there's this open-ended idea of they have closure. The big enemy's gone. Rey is claiming the Skywalker name, but she's kind of going on her own on Tatooine. Like from there, I mean, I like the idea of it just being like her story is done. Like the rest of her life is up to speculation. It can be good when the story ends, but also there could be other adventures. And the fact that there's nothing, I mean, the sky's the limit. They could do anything they want. I think that's a really cool position to be in.
The Skywalker's the limit, not
Nice.
not the sky.
The Skywalker
Well,
is the limit.
let's do this. So I need to watch Andor.
I think you'd enjoy it.
You need to watch Rings of Power, just the first season. Well, I guess we'll see how the second season goes.
Yeah, I mean, based on the technical side of it, it'll be a while before it comes out, I'm sure. But no, I'm going to give Rings of Power a full watch because even though the first 3 episodes left a bad taste in my mouth, enough people have said later episodes might be worth it. So I'm going to take you and Clayton's advice and go ahead and watch
Well,
it.
give me your ranking as of now, because you're 6 episodes in of Andor, and you're saying there's
Yes,
12 episodes, and
correct.
so you're halfway through.
Yes.
And is there a mid-season break, or is it going to just keep going every week?
No, I think it comes out every Wednesday. So day after tomorrow, we should have a new episode.
Okay, 6 episodes in. What do you rate it right now?
I assume we're sticking with our 100 scale.
With our 100 scale, yeah.
I'd say 98. It's solid.
98.
I love Andor so far. I think it's amazing. I mean,
Wow.
Diego Luna's fantastic as always. Stellan Skarsgård's in it. Mon Mothma's played a role.
Oh,
All the supporting
There's a
actors.
Skarsgård in it.
Oh yeah, Stellan Skarsgård plays like he's like a
Is he the
uh
one that did he play Floki, or which one? Which no, Stellan is the father, right?
yeah, he's the father
Okay.
of the Skarsgård clan of actors from Sweden. Yeah, no, he's Dr. Selvig from the Marvel universe. His performance I really enjoy. You actually don't see him till the 3rd episode of the show, but he's really cool and just Yeah, just what they're building here. It's dark, it's gritty, it's lots of twists. Like the ending of the most recent episode, I did not see coming from a mile away. I was like, oh, that's way more bleak and dark than I expected. But wow, like I think it's great. So
Do you think that they're treading the Dune line? Do you think that they are pulling from Dune at all? Because I know that Dune is kind of catching on.
no, no, I did enjoy Denny Villeneuve's. I can never say his last name right. The new Dune movie, I very much enjoyed. I actually got to go to the premiere and meet the director at it, and it was really cool. But no, this doesn't feel like Dune at all. Dune is more like big epic fantasy with a serious tone, whereas Andor is like, I mean, okay, so the opening scene of the first episode of Andor is like him in a brothel trying to find someone, and then things go bad, and he like kills some people. Like it's dark, it's gritty, it's kind of like a spy thriller. It's different, which is what I really like. And the showrunner of Andor is Tony Gilroy, who was the director of reshoots on Rogue One, and he was the director of a lot of the Bourne movies with Matt Damon. So that's kind of the tone they go for. And
Hmm.
it's yeah, Andor's really solid. I really like it. It's like I love The Mandalorian. I love Kenobi. Those shows are very Star Warsy.
Mm-hmm.
Andor is like a totally non-Star Wars story that happens to be set in Star Wars, which is why it's like people are like, "Well, do you like it better than The Mandalorian or better than Kenobi?" And I'm like, "No, there's such different things. I can't really rank them over each other." But just, I mean, Andor, just the writing's been solid. Everything about it's been amazing. So I really like it. It's a 98 for me.
That's high praise. All right. Well, I will watch Andor. You'll catch up on Rings of Power.
Yes, I will.
And then
No, you
Josh, I'm
will.
gonna I'm gonna commit to you right now. We're both gonna watch Black Panther,
Yes, November
Wakanda
11th.
Forever. We'll
Yes.
watch it. Maybe we'll have to, I don't know. Should we do a pre-review of Wakanda? And I will rewatch the first one.
It's a great
But
movie. I've seen
but
it a couple times now.
do we do a pre-review of it, or do we just watch it and then give a reaction?
I think we should watch it and give it a reaction because with something as hyped as Black Panther Wakanda Forever, besides what we're getting in the trailers, we're not really getting much. And the
Right.
trade, and separate tangent, I like when a trailer gives us a taste of what the movie's going to be like tonally, but doesn't give away the plot. I love that. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of movies nowadays, they're like, "Here's the whole movie," and you're like, "Well, god damn it! Like, why am I going to go see it now?"
Well,
You know? So
that's usually when they don't feel like they're going to recover what they need to recover in the box office.
exactly.
Hence
Yeah,
Black Adam.
I haven't even seen the trailer because I'm not a big DC fan, but whatever.
I don't know. It doesn't if if the Rock wants to come on here and tell us otherwise, then that's fine. But dude, I'm not
The man
looking
oozes
forward to it.
charisma, but I'm just not. I don't know. I tried to get into the DCEU or whatever. It's just been so poorly executed in comparison to the MCU. I really think the only movies that have stood out. I thought Man of Steel was decent. I know people have kind of torn it apart and had their issues that all are valid, but
Yeah.
Man of Steel wasn't bad.
Zack
I
Snyder's cut was all right.
Well, I haven't seen Batman vs Superman or Justice League. I actually haven't seen those. I just never got around to it, and I've heard enough negative reviews that I just haven't made the time for it. But the first Wonder Woman I liked a lot.
It
I
was a
thought
great that was excellent.
Birds of Prey, excellent.
I never watched Birds of Prey.
I think Birds of Prey is my favorite DC movie. Actually,
Wow.
it's really good. I love Birds of Prey, and then James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was pretty solid. I enjoyed
Yeah.
that. The first Suicide Squad, as with many people's opinion, I hated it because it had all the ingredients to be awesome, and then it just wasn't. And I can go on a whole separate tangent of why that happened, but of why I think that
I
happened.
can
But
I can um I can just consolidate your criticism. Jared Leto.
I'm honest. As much as I don't, as much as I've heard rumors of him being a shitty person in real life, I thought his Joker was fine. That actually wasn't my issue with the movie, which is unpopular opinion. I thought that was fine. I thought the movie wasn't about the Joker, so the fact that they had very little Joker in it was great. Um, Honestly, I think the biggest issue was um, they had the director David Ayer, who's done a lot of really good movies like Fury and Training Day. He wrote and directed it, and I think the first issue was they were telling an R-rated story in a PG-13 movie in the first one. That was the first big nail in the coffin. Um, and then they did reshoots, and Deadpool had just come out, which killed it at the box office. And so I think the studio pressured him to include more humor. And I thought the moments of attempts at levity in the first Suicide Squad really undercut the more interesting characters and really hurt the film. And plus, David Ayer, in all his other movies, he hasn't really had much comedy, so that was kind of a big issue there. And then the third nail in the coffin is that awesome trailer for it came out to Bohemian Rhapsody,
Right.
and it was, at the time, it was the most viewed movie trailer of all time, and it's a great trailer. It got me so hyped for the movie, and the studio went to the little like trailer production company that made that trailer and said, hey, we loved what you did with our trailer for our movie. We'd love to see what you do editing the entire film. So this trailer company that doesn't edit movies made a cut that was very musically oriented. And then the studio did the dumbest thing
That
ever, where they took
that's
that edit and they
that's
took the
crazy.
director's cut and they cut between them. And that's why the tone of the movie is like this, because
Oh my God.
and there are a few scenes in the movie, like when Will Smith gets his gun back for the first time and is on the shooting range. There were some scenes where they had the music edited really well to match the action, and that was clearly from that trailer company's edit. But the fact that the director, his cut wasn't the final cut they used parts of his final cut and they mashed them together. Like, it just killed their tone. So between those three facets of it, I think that's what killed Suicide Squad. And then James Gunn came along, and the second one's fantastic. It's not my favorite DC movie, but it was solid. I enjoyed it, so that's
Well,
my
we sure did load a lot of reviews into this
we sure did.
into this commentary. We touched on Andor, we touched on Rings of Power, we touched on Thor 4, Suicide Squad, touched on Wakanda Forever briefly, but Josh, let's just say this. We'll both watch Wakanda Forever,
Yes,
and we'll come back on here and
absolutely.
we'll give our feelings and thoughts on Wakanda Forever. But pre-watching it, I'm going to give it what I think I'm going to rate it after watching it, which nobody does this, but we're going to start doing this. I'm
Okay.
going to say right now, Wakanda Forever, it's at 95.
Based on Ryan Coogler's track record, I think that's a safe estimate.
So 95, that is what we're ranking Black Panther right now,
Yes.
which we may be setting ourselves up for failure, because you can't really, we're going in with such high expectations. That's a super
Could be
high.
dangerous.
It could be dangerous, but we'll
Could be
see if
dangerous.
it's too high of a bar. But anyway, Josh, thank you for having me on yet
Thank you
again.
for coming on. This was a delight, man. Between now and Black Panther, let's do an Andor and Rings of Power recap when we're both caught up.
Let's do it.
I love it. Well, thank you for being on Nerds and Friends, Mike Farrell. Pleasure as always. This has been great.
All right, Josh. See you soon.
May the force be with you.
And also with you, sir.